Morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you are. Yesterday, Chamisa promised that he was going to give an update on the resolution of the disputed August 2023 elections in Zimbabwe. Ever since August, Chamisa camp has told the nation that they're doing something about it, that the nation should be expecting dramatic changes. And here is the update. He gave his speech today, and this is him giving that speech. The sound quality of that video is not very good, but I'll just give you a summary of that, what that update was. The minister confirmed that on the 26th of September 2023, he wrote to SADC complaining of the shambolic and disputed August 23rd, 2023 elections in Zimbabwe. On the 23rd of October, SADC responded and advised that they were giving the matter due consideration. On the 23rd of March 2024, SADC had an extraordinary summit of the organ Troika on security in Zambia. And Chamisa said, therefore, we have advisedly been waiting patiently for our request. This is interesting because throughout that period, Chamisa connections had issued various statements about what SADC was doing, sending elders to meet Mnangagwa, and those elders were instructed to tell Mnangagwa that he was illegitimate, and then those meetings never happened. And then a few weeks later, or a few months later, we'll hear that SADC is doing something else. And you'll be seeing dramatic changes. This issue is now being resolved. And some of the videos had even Chamisa's face, implying that he was well aware of these videos. And some of these statements would have claims such as a well-placed source in SADC Secretariat advised us this is happening. And then on 29th April, last month, Chamisa wrote a follow-up to SADC, requesting progress on this issue. And from his update today, 27th May 2024, he did not say what SADC told him. So this update really is nothing short of him confirming that SADC has done nothing about the disputed elections in Zimbabwe. So the title of this update should be Chamisa'S claim that SADC will resolve Zimbabwe disputed August 2023 elections is dead and buried. That is the number one message this whole statement is giving. Of course, no one in their right mind would blame SADC for ignoring Chamisa. He really is a nauseatingly childish politician. He is the one who insisted in participating in these flawed elections, claiming that he had plugged all the ZANU-PF vote rigging loopholes. Hashtag God is in it. And yet he knew fully well that he was lying and that participating in the flawed elections would give ZANU-PF legitimacy. This point cannot be overemphasized. Chamisa and company have known that ZANU was rigging elections and that participating was flawed. This we have heard from the likes of Tendai Biti in 2015, who, after participating in the 2013, came out very strongly in an interview saying that participating in these flawed elections was futile. But as we know, when there were no takers from the opposition, he decided to participate in the 2018 elections. And he would have participated in the 2023 elections if he had managed to win CCC's primaries. David Coulthard said the same thing in his book. And I'm showing the full quotation at the bottom of the screen. But the essence of it was the 2013 election process was so flawed, so illegal, that the only logical step was to withdraw. But in his statement, he goes on further to explain why he and his fellow MDCT, MDCN guys did not withdraw. They did not trust that the other faction would not participate. And if they participated, they would get the gravy train seats. An inducement which neither side was willing to give up. In other words, they participated in the 2013 elections out of greed. That point must be made and must be made emphatically. It is shocking that many Zimbabweans have failed, even today with the benefit of hindsight, to see that reality. And that has not helped the country at all. Burying our heads in the sand is not solving any problem. And so in 2023, Chamisa participated in those elections, knowing fully well that they're flawed and that he was lying, that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. He was participating out of grade. He was only telling his followers that he had plugged the loopholes to hide the real reason why he was participating, i.e., greed. Even after SADC and the AU had issued their reports, the preliminary reports, condemning the 2023 elections, dismissing them as a farce, Chamisa and his friends went ahead and took up their gravy train seats. Chamisa himself is on record telling his Triple C officials not to take up their seats. And they told him, no, we are going to take them up because we sponsored our own election campaign and we want these seats. In other words, we were participating for the sake of these few gravy train seats. And now that we've got them, we're not going to give them up. Some of them even went one step further, the likes of Tendai Biti, David Coulthard, claiming that wherever Triple C had won the seats, these were liberated zones. The elections in these zones were free, fair, and credible. Of course, it was nonsense. The voters' roll that was used in last year's elections was not verified. A basic requirement for free, fair, and credible elections. And there was no separate verified voters' roll for the liberated zones. So what were they talking about? That's all nonsense. The truth of the matter is, these Triple C guys, just like when they were still in the MDC, they were prepared to participate in these flawed elections as long as they were fairly confident that they would win a few gravy train seats. The fact that the process is flawed is neither here or there. I agree that whilst SADC accepted the SADC Election Observer Mission report, the damning report that dismissed Zimbabwe's elections as flawed and illegal, that point cannot be disputed. The SADC Election Observer team was very clear on that issue. This is the SADC conclusion. And it could not have been more clearer. These Zimbabwe elections were flawed. They failed to meet Zimbabwe's own electoral law and SADC guidelines and principles on free and fair elections. That was very clear. SADC leaders accepted that report. Why they did not follow it up and deny ZANU-PF political legitimacy. I think there are three basic reasons why they did not follow it up and deny ZANU-PF political legitimacy. The number one reason is for all their huffing and puffing, these Triple C leaders, some of them have been in MDC this last 24 years. They have failed to implement the democratic reforms to stop ZANU-PF rigging the elections, even when they had the golden chance to do so during the GNU, which, it must be pointed out, came about with the help of SADC. Number two, Triple C and their supporters insisted in participating in last year's elections and in the past against the advice of SADC. SADC advised MDC leaders in 2013, do not participate in these flawed elections without first implementing the reforms. Morgan Tsvangirai and company ignored the advice. And they've been participating in flawed elections ever since. And ever since 2013, SADC has resigned and accepted the outcome. The subtle difference is that in 2023, SADC election observer team could not keep on ignoring the blatant rigging by ZANU-PF. And so they came up with a report saying this election process is flawed. But we cannot deny that MDC, Triple C, have been participating in these flawed elections, knowing fully well that they're flawed, and against the advice of SADC. What is actually annoying about this is that whenever the election results come, all of a sudden MDC, Triple C leaders start complaining that the elections were rigged. And yet, up to the day of the voting itself, they're the ones who've been saying, we will win rigged elections. Worse still, these MDC Triple C leaders have the cheek of blaming SADC every time for the rigged elections. I think SADC leaders have been really patient with this childish politicking by Chamisa and company. The third reason is that soon after the 2023 elections results were declared, Triple C started imploding before our own eyes. Samango started recalling elected Triple C leaders, and that threw the cat among the pigeons. Since Triple C has imploded into 4 distinct functions, Chamisa himself in January resigned as the leader of Triple C, claiming that Triple C had been infiltrated by ZANU-PF. In the face of all this chaos, SADC leaders would have said, okay, we can deny ZANU-PF legitimacy, but what then? ordinarily you would say, okay, we'll have a government of national unity that will implement the reforms. But in this case here, if CCC has imploded, and according to Chamisa's own claim, CCC, whatever we called CCC, was actually infiltrated by ZANU-PF. CCC was nothing more than ZANU-PF Team B, all playing all along to give Team A, to make sure that Team A wins, and Team A has political legitimacy. So denying Team A political legitimacy so that they could go into a government of national unity with ZANU-PF Team B, I think it's an exercise in futility. If I was SADC, would I want that? To what end and purpose? If MDC failed to implement even one token reform during the 2008 to 2013 GNU, what hope is there that this Team B, ZANU-PF Team B, would do any better? I firmly believe that SADC, in this particular instance, had no other option but to do nothing. And I hope this closes the door to some of those claims by the Chamisa camp that SADC is going to do something about the disputed election. SADC is not doing anything about the disputed August 2023 elections. The people of Zimbabwe need to focus now on the issue of 2028. As things stand right now, ZANU-PF will not implement any reforms, and why should they? In fact, ZANU-PF, if anything at all, Mnangagwa is now toying with the idea of extending his stay in power by hook or by crook. And Chamisa, for his part, is trying by issuing such meaningless statements like this to keep his constituency galvanized. Because no doubt about it, many of his supporters will accept the statement, meaningless as it is. You must remember, these are the same individuals who believed that Chamisa had plugged all the vote-rigging loopholes last year and participated, expecting CCC to win. Chamisa is on record claiming that he was preparing for a cabinet and change is coming. And by the way, his statement this time finished with the same optimism that change was coming. This is the tragedy of Zimbabwe. The failure to understand what is really going on. The failure to hold leaders to account has allowed leaders like Chamisa to come again and again making outrageous promises which they never fulfill. And he was never taken to task on why he insisted on participating in these 2023 elections, lying that he had plugged all the vote-rigging loopholes, when in reality, he did not even deploy enough election agencies on voting day to make sure that ZANU-PF does not rig. Something that is so common sense. It's not because he didn't have the money. He had the money to do it. This is an individual who has been playing as ZANU-PF Team B. And yet when it comes to his friends, they believe that he's delivering change. This tragedy is going to continue. In this statement, he actually was saying that he's not focusing on 2028 elections because he's going to get 2023 elections, disputed elections sorted out. Well, SADC is not doing anything. So he should, if he's going to resolve it, he should resolve them himself because SADC is not doing anything. And we know why SADC is not doing anything. And we should stop fooling ourselves that SADC is going to do something. It's not going to do anything. So those gullible and naive supporters should ask Chamisa, what are you going to do about it? This issue is dragged on. This is now end of May, 9 months since the election. What are you going to do about it? The truth is not going to do anything, but he'll make a big fuss about it and pretend he's doing something about it. And very soon he'll finally turn around and say, well, let's focus on 2028 elections. And he'll come up with the same outrageous claims that he has found ways of winning rigged elections. And his followers will believe him. They'll participate again in the 2028 elections. And we are back to where we are today. This tragedy is one of our own making. There is absolutely no excuse at all why Zimbabwe has failed to hold free, fair, and credible elections for 44 years and counting. Chamisa and company have been on the political stage these last 24 years. Their number one reason why people have risked life, limb, and livelihoods to elect them was so that they would implement the democratic reforms to stop ZANU-PF rigging elections. They failed to implement even one reform. And worse still, they're the ones who are insisting in participating in these flawed elections. Insisting, claiming they have got strategies of winning rigged elections. And when they lose, they blame SADC. They pretend they can resolve this. How long are we going to be that gullible and allow ourselves to be conned into this endless, absolutely meaningless cycle of rigged elections, participate in the flawed elections without even any reforms, and then claim that the elections were rigged, blame everybody else except yourself, and so the cycle goes on. This has got to come to an end. This is nonsense. The people of Zimbabwe must grow up and accept that this is not working. Before I conclude, I just want to discuss a few comments by some of the listeners there. Tina says, Chamisa is ZANU-PF machine, no doubt about it. I used to support him, but now no more. He is a nightmare. He gives poor people hope, and they don't see it at all. I could not agree with you more. Chamisa has managed to take advantage of the ignorance, naivety, and gullible Zimbabwean electorate. The fact that people continue to follow him blindly, 24 years after MDC has failed to implement even one token reform, beggars belief. We are our own worst enemies here. We cannot deny it. He absolutely has no solution. And yet some people would want to continue to blindly follow him. This is ridiculous. Owen has got his own comment here. He says, Aunanyaya, shut up. Oh, well, I think that you are entitled to your own opinion, but after 44 years of rigged elections, to say that this can carry on, I think is absurd. The issue here is not what I say, it's what is on the ground, the reality on the ground. We have got to confront this problem of 44 years of rigged elections. That says a lot about our own failure to address the real big issues here. Another comment. Don't fool people, use ZANU thugs. You rigged elections, your ZANU-PF president is illegitimate, was not voted by the citizens. I could not agree with you more on the point that the 2023 elections were flawed, that ZANU-PF and Mnangagwa rigged those elections, that Mnangagwa and ZANU-PF are illegitimate. But the point we should not forget here is that the opposition, by failing to implement even one token reform, when they had the golden opportunity to do so, they've allowed ZANU-PF to continue rigging elections. That is the point. You must see it for what it is. Think of it as you are in jail. You're given a get out of jail card. I believe the GNU was our get out of jail card. Why did MDC fail to implement even one token reform and end this cycle of rigged elections? That is the question that the opposition must address. And we must ask them that question. To keep on complaining of how thick the walls of the jail is, the security behind it, the landmine in the field surrounding the prison, etc., etc., is to miss the point completely. When you are given the get out of jail card, no one is expecting you to break out of jail. You're supposed to walk out through the main door, the main gate. The question is, why didn't you? And the reason is very simple. MDC guys were bribed by Robert Mugabe to forget about the reforms. They were busy enjoying the trappings of power. For 5 years, they failed to implement even one token reform. So to keep on blaming ZANU-PF for MDC's betrayal is to miss the point completely. Like I said, SADC, damning report I think SADC itself would have denied ZANU-PF legitimacy if Chamisa and company had not participated, insisting that they could win rigged elections. If Chamisa and company had not taken up their seats, even after SADC and the AU had issued damning reports on the election process. I think the opposition is the problem, because it is the one that is playing and cheating the people. I think ever since the GNU, MDC, Chamisa and company have been running with the povo hair and hunting with the ZANU-PF hounds. We need to open our eyes and see what Chamisa and company have been doing and address that. Because without reforms to make sure that ZANU-PF does not rig elections, without participating in flawed elections to give ZANU-PF legitimacy, we are not going to get out of this hellhole. That is the argument. Got another comment here. Sorry, I was about to finish, but I'll show it. Stop lying, no time to pay attention to your nonsense. Well, the argument has been made. If you've got a counter argument, let's hear it. And we can't keep on arguing round and round in circles. Last comment from Aaron. I'm not Snam Soroba. Well, I think we need to start thinking outside the box. To keep on believing blindly that Chamisa had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes in the elections last year is what encouraged many people out there to participate in those flawed elections. And now, with the benefit of hindsight, to sweep it under the carpet would be totally irresponsible. And those of you who think that that is the wise thing to do, let me rest assure you that I think enough is enough. If you decide to bury your head in the sand and refuse to see the facts on the ground, that is your problem. Don't make it mine. I think maybe just to conclude this, I would like to play a short video clip of Dr. Navis Mumba's advice to the people of Zimbabwe. I think it's advice that we should now take very seriously as we go into the 2028 elections.
Well, thank you so much. First of all, let me be clear that the changing of any dynamic or situation in any of our African countries is a preserve of the citizens of that country, in this case, the Zimbabwean people. An election observation team goes there to support the process by observing and being able to release a statement of our observations that, for instance, in Zimbabwe, we raised several issues of transparency and also the independence of the Electoral Commission and things which happen in many other countries, you know. But at the end of the day, once we produce the report and make it available to the Zimbabwean authorities and eventually to the Zimbabwean people, it really remains the preserve of the Zimbabwean people to fight for the freedoms that they need themselves and to correct those issues that have been observed. The reason why we have multiple observation missions is to ensure that, you know, there is a comparison, you know, taking place between the SADC report report and the European Union report, the African Union report. And then they can see that those issues that repeat themselves in all these reports, it's up to the Zimbabwean people. And this is where I appeal to all political leaders, not only in Zimbabwe, especially the elections that are coming in Mozambique, they're coming in South Africa, in DRC. We have to make up our minds that, look, at the end of the day, once the people in the country are given an opportunity to monitor the elections, because they also monitor, it starts not during the day of the elections. They must make sure that the constitutional lacunas that can affect a good election are dealt with months before the election. And they must fight to ensure that there's a level playing field. They should never wait for the time when the election is taking place. They must also insist that the electoral commissions and the governments in those countries abide by international norms in holding democratic elections. And this fight must be more vicious before the election comes.
I couldn't put it more strongly myself. The advice is very simple and very clear. Do not participate in flawed elections. Last year's elections were flawed and illegal. And SADC and the AU and all the election observer teams of any substance at all condemned those elections. The question then is, why did we participate? Did we not know that the elections were flawed? We did know that the elections were flawed. We participated because Nelson Chamisa assured some of our gullible Zimbabweans that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes, that he would win rigged elections. God is in it, he said. And of course, when he failed, he has never, ever apologized for having lied to the people of Zimbabwe, for having conned them into participating in a flawed electoral process only to give ZANU-PF legitimacy. Don't blame SADC for failing to deny ZANU-PF political legitimacy when you yourself participated in your millions in a flawed process. That point cannot be denied. I think SADC election observer team really took the courage to call the 2023 elections for what it is, flawed and illegal. It has given us the platform. We had the platform before. By the way, the 2018 elections were observed by the European Union. They had a very strong team. 246 members were dispatched to Zimbabwe to observe those elections, plus all the other local people who came in to support. And they produced a powerful report, and they condemned the 2018 elections as flawed. They came up with 23 reform recommendations. Chamisa knew about those reform recommendations. He knew not even one of those reforms had been implemented before the 2023 elections. And yet, he was adamant in participating in those flawed elections. We cannot keep on burying our heads in the sand. I repeat, Chamisa is not doing anything to resolve the disputed 2023 elections. SADC is not doing anything, and they've made it very clear. They are not doing anything. All these reports of SADC doing something finally and so forth, they were just hot air. I think the people of Zimbabwe should be smart enough not to fall for those cheap CCC Chamisa lies. I'm disappointed that Chamisa, in this statement, did not start by apologizing to the people of Zimbabwe for lying that he had plugged all the vote-rigging loopholes. But of course, he could not apologize for that because he's preparing yet another lie. He is preparing to tell the people of Zimbabwe that he is going to participate in 2028 and is going to win big, and people should prepare for themselves for change. Change is coming. When he knows that change is not coming at all. I think we need to be smart enough. After 44 years of rigged elections, enough is enough. We can avoid 2028 being another rigged election by being smart enough to say, no, let's have the reforms implemented, and we should not be easily conned into believing that we can win rigged elections. That is my message. Tonight at 7, we're going to have another discussion on a follow-up on this Chamisa statement. And I think it is something that should be thoroughly understood. We cannot afford, I repeat, we cannot afford to have 2028 another rigged election in Zimbabwe. It is that simple. Thank you very much for joining me this afternoon, and have a good day. Thank you.